Good morning, everybody. I am joined today by our guest, Guy Dawson, on the Love of Business podcast. And I really enjoy doing this podcast, Guy. Number one, it shows the passion and why we got into business, right? We're having a conversation a little while ago talking about the article that Forbes put out in networking. My name is Edgar Rodriguez. I am the founder of Master the Network. Guy, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, just 1 second. My light just give me 1 second, Edgar. There we
We
go. All
roll it. We
right.
roll it.
Well, yes, I'm. My name's Guy Dawson, and I am the founder of PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media, and I run a public relations and marketing business. We've been in business since 2008, called Classy Communications.
Yeah, thank you, Guy. And tell us a little bit about how you got introduced to wanting to get into the PR. Like what passion drove you towards wanting to build this entity you've built?
Well, for me, it was in the mid 2000s or around 2006 to about 2009. I got involved in a lot of personal development. I really got into reading lots of books, attending lots of seminars. And I was sitting in a seminar one day out in San Diego, and there was a speaker on stage who had a great message that I resonated with because I'd been an entrepreneur my whole life, but I had never really found my thing, if you know what I mean. I've been, a lot of different entrepreneurial pursuits I had, but I had not ever found that thing that I really connected with. And the guy who was doing the presentation there brought up a great point. And he said, if you want to figure out what your real skill set is, think back to when you were around 12 or 13 years old and what you were good at that time. And that is probably your thing. And it just really was an eye opener for me, Edgar, because it made me think back of what I was interested in as a little kid like that. And I discovered, I was thinking back, and I was already an entrepreneur at that age, but I was always into writing and speaking. And so once I had a clear view of how I was wired, that was what he was really trying to help us understand, is that we're all wired to do certain things exceptionally well. And once I knew what I was really wired to do, it just all came to me. And I got into, I became a freelance writer from there. And after doing freelance writing for a little while, I started to develop a whole concept for taking the freelance writing beyond that and starting to become a publicist. And that's what I've been doing for the last 15 years. And it was really as the result of personal development. I'm a huge believer in personal and professional development.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and that's pretty incredible that you had somebody at that age to say, "Hey, if you go back towards your childhood, and that's when you find your true passion," right? I know with me, I have a wealth management background, and I know when we met, I was still in that business, right? And I knew that my passion wasn't, not to say that it wasn't the wealth management piece, because I really enjoyed educating families. And this stems to me all the way back to the Marine Corps, where, to echo what you said and resonate, is I've always had a thing for helping or wanting to help other people become better. And as a leader in the Marine Corps, you have to be that tip of the spear to make those Marines better. How do you speak to them, right? In me, I was a 19, 20 years old, a very young platoon sergeant with 56 different Marines, 56 different personalities, 56 different ethnicities. You got to learn how to make them tick, how to make them get going. And what I discovered is I'm at that age, and everything that's transpired is I'm really passionate about helping people. Mm-hmm. And how that translated into business and in wealth management, it was the education piece, right? I never saw it as me selling a client a product. I saw it as, hey, if I do my job by educating you and asking the right questions, you're going to do what's best for you and your family. And when I left and started Master the Network, I remember them telling me, you're crazy and nobody's ever done this. But I felt that calling, right, in passion towards, no, this is something that I know I can thrive at. This is something that I'm naturally gravitating towards. And it inspired me to jump into it full throttle. And I know when we first met and we had that conversation of, hey, tell me about Master the Network. Tell me a little bit more, or right, tell me more about it. And you saw the passion. And it's not like I'm going to get rich off of people. The goal is I want to make and expedite the learning curve in networking, because it takes people a lifetime to figure out what they're passionate about, what they're great at, or what they're good at, or what they're meant to do. So I'm glad that, they had you go back to your 12-year-old childhood to figure out, hey, this is what it is. And this is, you knew that, writing and speaking, and that's what made you create PR Connection. So very, very happy you and I have been able to connect and meet over the time that we have spent together. Now, with your business, Guy, what are you most excited about with your business?
Well, the thing I'm most excited about is very similar to what you talked about, Edgar. It's all about service, and it's all about your commitment. For me, it's all about whatever the vehicle is that we utilize in order to bring success to businesses. The tagline for Classy Communications, the public relations and marketing company, is your solution for business success. So for me, it's all about service, just like you talked about, helping people. It's really, it's about developing relationships with people to where they connect with you. And then you've got a specific skill set that can benefit their business, and it's getting that aligned, because the relationships that you build with people, that's why, Edgar, when we first met and you talked about Master the Network and how, yes, I could see the passion in you. It's because I'm such a huge believer in networking, and it's because it's relationships. Business is done through relationships. They talk about it's always business, never personal, right? You hear people, it's business, not personal. Well, yes, that is one aspect, I have to say. But whenever you're dealing with human beings, it's always personal. I mean, it's because we're human beings. And so that, for me, the whole thing is that I want to make friends, right? I mean, your network is truly tied into your net worth. And I appreciated your passion when you, like you mentioned, when you talked to me about that. So that's what our business is all about, is we just want to make a lot of friends and be able to deliver a lot of value. And the vehicle that we use is media, marketing, public relations, streaming networks, the streaming networks such as this. We're just constantly looking for ways to deliver value to our friends, people who we've created friendships and great relationships with.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're talking about the people business, right? Like that's what we're in, is we're nurturing relationships. And before we started the podcast, we were talking about Forbes. Forbes put out an article, and the title of it is Why Networking is Still Important and How to Use It to Continue to Strive in Your Career. It's a very, very interesting read because it talks about and we talked about before we started the podcast, the key relationships that I built in my business, whether it was just to bring them into the circle or for me to get into their circle, is how I should really position that, right? Is with those specific relationships, I asked them out to lunch versus a regular coffee meeting. Coffee to me is, hey, we're going to talk about business, or that's the positioning of coffee versus lunch. If we think about a lot of the old school movies that we were growing up watching, any deals that really happen, like the 1%ers of our generation, they always break bread. And when they're breaking bread, they're building those relationships, and they don't talk about business until the very end. So, to echo what you were saying is, yes, we want to educate people, and it doesn't really matter the vehicle that we're in. Our goal is to educate them, build a relationship with them, nurture that relationship, and help them create success. And that's the value add that I wanted to bring is, hey, I built an extensive network, and what is it that you're looking for, and how can I add value to you, right?
Yeah.
I want to welcome in my co-host Davin. We were talking about the passion behind why Guy got into business, how he started PR Connections, and then we just went on a rant about networking and being in the people business. So Davin, can you tell us a little bit about your passion behind the real estate industry?
Absolutely, yeah. So my passion started actually in the investing world. So I really enjoy the passive income side of real estate, even though you got to work at it in order to get the passive income. It's just something I was drawn to. However, I realized pretty quickly and pretty early on that most real estate agents actually didn't have an investment knowledge of what they were selling. They were selling simply, like almost like a car, right? Like that you use, right? Or a home that you use. And they really weren't selling the asset that real estate was and advising on how to maximize that asset. So that's what I got really passionate about, was kind of not really fixing the industry, but just being an example of the change that I wanted to see. Because I saw so many agents that didn't have that knowledge behind them, and I really wanted to say, hey, either I can bash all these agents out there that are making all this money and they don't know the knowledge that I know, or I can go get licensed, be different, and just be that change that you want to see. And then from there on, I ended up starting up my own brokerage. Now I teach agents exactly what I do in order to try to duplicate myself the best I can, but then also mix that with their personal style so that they can bring the wealth building mindset to people that I may not ever have had the ability to make contact with, right? We all have our differences and our strengths, and different people communicate with us differently or experience us differently. And so to have that diversity on my team actually really kind of helps the same message reach different people.
Yeah, I think the important is that you discovered people were fulfilling a need in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Like a house is a necessity, we need it. But are we putting that homeowner, right, in making probably one of the biggest investments they're going to make
on average, yeah,
in their lifetime, right? And that investment, is it a good one or is it a bad one, right? And you discovered that if I educate and I understand what they're trying to accomplish for the long run, how is this puzzle piece going to affect their life down the line? So you discovered what we like to call in the industry your unique selling proposition, and how do you separate from the other 1,000 real estate agents that are out there, right?
Or 18,000 in the case of Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's still relationships. You know, it's no different than just flat out networking, Edgar, like you've been talking about and you champion. It's all boils down to relationships.
Yes. So I'm going to ask this question, and with all three of us, I want to see how we can answer this one. But what do you guys feel is the hardest part about being an entrepreneur?
Guy, do you want to go first, or
that is quite a question, Edgar.
I think I know. For me, at least, I think I know what it is. Yeah. So I think the hardest thing is, like, so when you own a business, right, you have to have some knowledge. Even if you delegate that particular part of your business out, you have to have some knowledge about every single piece of your business, which kind of makes you in the business of finance. It makes you in the business of insurance. It makes you in the business of accounting. It makes you in the business of producing what you produce. But then so many other things like marketing, right? You have to be in the business of marketing your own business, but then you also have marketing knowledge that could help other businesses too, right? So it's that need to have such a diversity of knowledge, yet really focus on what you do and bring to the business world that you produce, right, at the end of the day. So I think that's the hardest thing is knowing so many things, but ignoring some of the things that you know to focus on the things that you're truly an expert in, right? Because there's knowing something and there's being an expert. So I think that's probably the hardest thing.
Yeah, that is
It's
a good point. You have to know a little bit about a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, think of so this is something that that Jeff brought up to me, Jeff Keach. He was like, your business has all the same operations as AT&T. You just have less people, you know. So you know, you got
yeah.
all the same needs, right?
The
Same
important
department.
thing is that there's different steps
Yeah.
to
Right.
to a business, right? And we're all in different phases or seasons in our business. That's why I really like this podcast, because we get people who have been doing it like I for 15 plus years, right? Davin, you've been in business for a few years now, and I launched my company back in May of this year. So we're all in different phases. The interesting part is, you know, to me, the hardest part about entrepreneurship is it can be a lonely journey.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that we don't want to, as a business owner, ever open the hood and tell people what's really going on, right? Because there are different levels of business. There are different seasons that are where it's peaks and valleys in business. The interesting part about it is if you surround yourself with the right people, right? Other business owners, other like-minded individuals, and you have those mentors that have been through it. They can coach you through that, right? They in anything that we've ever done that's significant in our lives. If you think about from us being as kids, we had our parents teaching us the early fundamentals of life. Then we went to school, right? At school, we had teachers who guided us through the hard parts of growing up. And then even through college or even in the military for some of us, we had, whether it was our drill instructors or our professors or other bosses, for those that did go to work for a little bit in the corporate world, we had that mentorship to get us the fundamentals of how you get what you need to get structured. So it can be a lonely journey, but it doesn't have to be. Just surround yourself with those people that are like-minded. I would say would be probably the hardest part of entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it comes back to you as the entrepreneur. You know what I mean? It's your business is about you, even though it's not about you. Because where you are in your life, and that was like I was talking about earlier, Edgar, the personal development and professional development. I do believe that that's the greatest investment that any entrepreneur ever makes. And that's into you, because as you grow, you know, this is what I've learned over 15 years in this business, is that the growth that happens within your business is directly tied into where you are and your willingness to take on yourself, right? To break through a lot of barriers that we have as our limitations that we have, a lot of our programming that we have. It's not that we want it to be that way. It's just what it is. You have to be able to break through and expand yourself. Otherwise, your business cannot expand. And that's a really critical thing. When you see people that are running massive businesses, whether, you know, you believe in the way that they've done it or how they are going about it, the fact is the reason why they're running massive organizations or massive businesses is because they think at that level. They've broken through things either naturally, consciously or unconsciously. They've broken through a lot of things. They have a personal development and professional development program, even though they may not call it that. It could be that they're into their church or they've got things that they're doing that are expanding them. So I think that that's the biggest thing that I've found in my experience as an entrepreneur, you guys, is just, it's about you. How big can you grow yourself to be? And your business will be a reflection of that.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things I've learned as a business coach is that we want to educate business owners or re-educate business owners through business education. And that's what a lot of people need, is the different levels of marketing. Like Davin, you talked a little bit like the marketing piece, right? Or, hey, how am I going to funnel more clients? Or, hey, how am I going to build, you know, that next niche that we're looking for? Guy, you just talked about barriers, right? Breaking barriers. That actually leads to my next question. How do you guys push through your biggest business doubts?
All right. I think how I do it personally is I try to look at some of my competitors that have done it, not to compare myself and say like oh, why am I not at that level, but to really say like, okay, somebody else can do it. How did they do it, right? And then sometimes you discover like, okay, that person did inherit a little bit more money, than I could ever have access to, right? So maybe let's look at a different example. And then you find somebody who really built it from scratch and you go, okay, that's what I'm doing. How did they get to that level? And you say, am I willing to do that? Because now you've taken away all the excuses. So that's how I personally like to do it. So yeah.
I think for
Yeah.
me, it's about consistency.
Yeah.
Because that's just a natural part of life. I mean, we all got insecurities and doubts, but I think that once I've gotten the the inspiration to do something, I'm supposed to have it, right? Or this is something that we're supposed to bring to the world. But from there, you get the inspiration, right? And we all get inspired to do things and we're super, super excited about it and hot about it. But that can fade very easily. But the consistency of approaching whatever the endeavor is inside of the business, the discipline that it takes to stick with things when you're not feeling good, you're not making money, right? All these things may be happening in your personal life, but you still stay the course, the consistency of working towards that thing. That's for me is like my self-discipline and how, and motivating the team of people that I have around me through my own discipline and the consistency of that is how I'm able to work through the doubts. Because if you stick with it, guys, you guys know this, you're both out there doing it. If you stick with it, eventually you get over the hump. You get beyond the doubt, but you have to stick with it consistently. I think that's a big one for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna say for me personally I look at my two daughters. Why am I doing this? Why did I get into business, right? It's not just like you really, really have to think about what caused you to get into business, the why, and the reason we get up, the reason why we go through these challenges. And I always, sometimes I look further back, right? I've experienced death twice in the Marine Corps. It didn't take me out then. So the head trash that lives in our brains, I just think back to like, okay, my story's not done. It could have been, but it's not. So this challenge, embrace the suck, right? I'm going to embrace this obstacle and I'm going to break through it because my why is bigger than this obstacle. Is my how I face those business doubts. And I know it's a little deep, but we sometimes have to think all the way back. Just like we talked about earlier, Guy, you had to take a look in the mirror and say, okay, at 12 years old, what was I really good at? What was I passionate about? And look where you are today, right? So we have to reflect sometimes, which I know we're coming up on wrapping up, but I do have one more question that I do like to ask is, how does your business look different now versus when you first started?
Oh, wow.
All right. When my business first started, I didn't have any customers, didn't have any people helping me out. All I had was an idea, and my friends thought I was crazy, So now there's a website, there's a team, there's customer reviews, there's people that haven't even been a customer, or they don't work for me or work with me, but they still vouch for me out in the community, and the kind of that boosts my reputation to a certain degree, right? So now I'm not quite the crazy new entrepreneur on the street, So that's how it's changed, Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me, I have I mean, it looks completely different in a lot of ways, but I feel like I've just got so much more confidence than I did 15 years ago, just getting started, not really knowing where. I had a vision, but I didn't really have the level of confidence that I have now about our team's ability to be able to deliver value through public relations and marketing. And so I would say more than anything, yeah, Edgar, is through experience, you gain confidence, or at least I know I have. And so I'm very confident about our ability to be able to deliver on what we say we're going to deliver on as a company. And I mean, that's very helpful because your customers can sense your confidence in what you're doing. And so that, I think that's been a really critical thing, and your professionalism. And I think that also grows over time.
Yeah. I think those are two great points. I know for me, the confidence, for me in networking, I had to fake it till I make it. The one thing that I did realize when connecting with people is I was genuinely interested in not what their business was, but what do they personally like to do, right? How do they spend their free time? Do they have kids? What are their hobbies? What books are they reading? Are they of the mind that wants to continue to grow, or are they of the mind that just is comfortable? And for me, the process of elimination was I wanted to surround myself with people who thrive on wanting to continue to grow, continue to evolve. So the reason I like to ask that question is over time, with the knowledge, the people, and the books we intake, our business is going to shift because of what's going on around us and what's going on around the world. So we have to stay educated and surround ourselves with those people that are also willing to educate themselves and have been through it, right? Because they're going to teach us. They have the blueprint. We just have to be willing to ask, hey, how did you do it? And if you really think about it, the most successful entrepreneurs out there, they want to give back. They want to create a thriving economy. So it's through those relationships of just asking or picking up the phone and saying, hey, I know we haven't met yet, but here's my question. How did you create the success that you did? And they'll give you, like, people love to talk about themselves. So they're willing to give you the answers. So I know we're coming up on our time. Before we wrap up today, is there anything you guys want to let the viewers know on a question that I didn't ask that you wish I did ask?
For me, I mean, I love the fact that you guys are just running with this concept, the love of business, this show that we're streaming over on the network. And I want to show appreciation for the two of you, and out there nurturing the entrepreneurial spirit. That's what you guys are doing. It's a great give back, your commitment that you've made to do this and help people through the knowledge that you're sharing in your different industries. So more than anything, man, I just want to say how much, as your executive producer, how much I appreciate the two of you and the investment that you're making in the business community through this podcast. Just keep doing what you're doing, guys. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Guy. Edgar, to answer your question, I think it'd just be to do it. Like, don't hold back. Don't think about what's limiting you. Think about what you can do. Because if you focus on what you can actually affect, eventually the capability that you have will increase, and you'll be able to affect the things you couldn't affect yesterday.
Yeah. I think that's why I like the business owner mindset, because they have the fortitude that us who enlisted into the Marine Corps is the same mindset. Not everybody was called to serve. Not everybody was called to become a business owner. And that's the commonality that we share, is we have what it takes. And we're willing to answer the call to step into a very uncomfortable situation, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to break those barriers. We're going to surround ourselves and go find those people. A book that changed my landscape is Who, Not How. I can spend an entire lifetime trying to figure out how am I going to get this done? How am I going to do that? Or I can move my ego to the side and say, who do you know that can help me with this project? Who do you know that can help me with my marketing? And as you build your network, you start to think you have all those tools, kind of like Batman, right? He has a utility belt, and that's everybody in our network. Same concept. So I want to wrap up today. Thank you, Guy. And I appreciate being able to do this because it's my passion to give back and serve. From serving my country to serving my community is the easiest way that I can explain why I chose to do this podcast.